Good morning and welcome to the St. Pete Clearwater Pinellas County Tourist Development Council meeting for March the 13th, 2019. We'll go ahead and introduce ourselves, starting with Mr. Satterfield.
Tony Satterfield, Alden Suites.
Morning, Chuck Prather, the Birchwood Inn.
George Creticus, City of Clearwater, home of the spring training home of the Philadelphia Phillies.
Russ Kimball, Sheraton Sankey, Clearwater Beach.
Jim Dean, Visit St. Pete Clearwater.
Karen Seal, Pinellas County Commissioner and Chair of this Tourist Development Council.
Good morning, Michael Zoss, County Attorney's Office.
Good morning, Charlie Gerda, City of St. Petersburg.
Good morning, Cookie Kennedy, City of Indian Rocks Beach.
Good morning, Doreen Moore, Travel Resort Services.
Morning, Phil Henderson, Starlight Cruises, Clearwater, South Pasadena, and Friday, Madeira Beach.
Okay.
Plug.
Great. Well, my comments today are a couple of things. One is we had talked about trying to schedule the Tourist Development Council and the County Commission a joint meeting to talk about transportation and capital projects. I think that's going to be delayed a bit because the county administrator is still trying to wrap up when the county commission's going to have a work session. And that looks like it's now going to be sometime late April. So I'll keep you apprised as to how all that goes, but I just wanted to give you an update on that. The other matter that I wanted to discuss is I had Liz send out, and you may have already received, the Pinellas County Sports Tourism Complex and Events Center, a conceptual executive summary. Mm-hmm. And just if you've had a chance to look at it, I'd like to know your thoughts. We talked about it at the county commission meeting last night. There is some interest in seeing if it's worth doing a feasibility study to see if this would be, what the competition is, what the looking at the inventory of what we already have and or in the process of building. So, one of my comments is when you look at the complexes that are out there, you wonder whether we're too late. A lot of them are in the pipeline of being built. And so if we ended up doing a feasibility study, we would also have to test the market to see what the market is and if this would be a good thing for Pinellas. Of course, Commissioner Welch brought up the fact that, we are the only one of these complexes that have a beach, which is true. Mm-hmm. The other part that I brought up is it does help to fill our mid and lower priced hotel inventory. But that being said, the economic impact may not be as great as perhaps some other projects. So I just thought I'd get your initial thoughts, and then I didn't want to put anybody on the line today since, you just got this, but we can take your initial thoughts and then see if you think we should proceed. And then next month, I'll come back and ask you all if you want to proceed with a feasibility study.
Madam Chair, do you have any estimate of what that study might cost?
I would not really, but probably less than 100,000. Yeah. So, Tim, do you want to address anything?
If there's questions, sure. I'm going to sit up there for 2 hours and pitch this idea.
Does anybody have any questions for Tim?
I don't have a question. We've talked about this before on numerous occasions, and I think the biggest takeaway that I had was that we would control the fields, which is something that we don't necessarily have today. I think that's the most important thing that it would give us. Historically, it does impact. For example, if you had something in March, a beachfront property probably would not be competitive. Mm-hmm. But properties along the US 19 corridor and that sort of thing would certainly benefit from this. So, I think it's worth exploring.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the control issue is really part and parcel of the bigger issue, which is displacement of recreational facilities. And that's the problem we face. When we try to program events, all our municipal partners have programming that's already in place. And so we try to bring in an MLS team to train, and they have to displace their soccer teams, their youth teams. And so it goes hand in hand. It's not only control of our own destiny and programming, but it's to relieve the pressure of displacement for our municipal partners.
And this would probably impact Clearwater the most, wouldn't it, Mr. Mayor?
We do a pretty good job of working with the county in making our fields available and doing exactly what Tim is saying, because our youth programs understand, having that ability to have a major league soccer player use that field, the pitch, and the training programs with them. So we've really actually haven't had the difficulties. I know some of the smaller communities have run into that problem, and that's where it would be a benefit to the whole county.
I have not read that, I have to admit. I've heard about it, talked about it a little bit. And sports is such a growing in the numbers that we do in Pinellas County for all types of hotels, depending on what time of year and all year round. I think it warrants some type of a review. And if we're talking about $100,000 on the millions of dollars that we do total, I think is needed. And a good example as we look at the relationship with the cities like Clearwater and what we can do more or anywhere else kind of has to be looked at a little bit, in addition to this complex, which would be another piece, which I'm involved, I think it's 4 years now. Sarah's worked with us on taking sports that have never been played on the beach, play on the beach now, soccers and Highland games and all this other stuff. And so it kind of brings that out too, to say how can we adapt non-fields to some of the sports to get the occupancy in the off season. I mean, we have a sailing center on Sand Key that needs to say, okay, here's more things that could be used when the kids aren't being taught and the other ones aren't being taught in the school time. So I think this is a great area that we can invest in to come up with where do we go after the last few years.
Mayor?
I just noticed that I think in Panama City, is that Bay County?
Yes, it is.
Just opened up a new facility under the support and recommendations of Sports Facilities Management, which is based here in Clearwater.
Correct.
So we probably would have somebody in Pinellas County even that could do some of that consulting, after you do the RFP, obviously.
Absolutely, Deb
Yeah.
Patik and his group. And if you recall, those of you who've been on this board for a couple of years, SFA did a study, an audit of our facilities a few years ago. And I spoke to this the last two budget meetings in May. And that study revealed that we are woefully undergraded when it comes to our facilities, but the quantity of the facilities really is the issue. We do have quality facilities, but again, we can't program what we don't have available. But SFA is a local entity that we would want to provide a proposal to do this study for. And I would venture to say, with all due respect, that maybe the range would probably be $50,000 to $100,000.
But if, what I noted though is like you have several coming online, Wiregrass and Pasco, the Champion Sportplex in Hillsborough, the Collier County Sports Complex in Naples, and as you just mentioned, the Panama City is opening. So
We're
that would,
seriously behind the curve.
I'd almost like to see if we could look at this in two different ways if we're going to look at it. One would be, we obviously have the Toy Town land that the county controls and owns. So would a private company be interested in coming in and building and versus the county or investing the capital, which then we would be more at risk for operations. So two business models might be interesting to look at just to see what could work and what might be feasible. Charlie?
Yeah, I thank you. I would be in favor of spending the money to do the study, and I because I'd be interested to find out if the market is saturated. I spent a long time because I have 4 sons as a baseball coach, and the travel team approach is Little League is dying. the youth community sports leagues really are going away. Travel volleyball, travel basketball, travel baseball is where it's all at. And generally, parents are willing to spend a lot of money for their children to play these travel teams. My brother's 13-year-old is right now going to Venice to play baseball. And so there's definitely a return to be had, but based upon what's happening, I'd like to spend the money to find out if it's a saturated market or if we're too late or if we're in the thick of it. I think it would be worth it to find out.
Yeah, I remember when Tim came, and and I had a brief conversation because I wanted to know how big, or how small, what size properties. And my son too has played every sport. In fact, I'm traveling with him to Daytona this weekend for a semi-pro game. And I think it's definitely worth investigating it. And I think I've been in every complex in the state for all these different sports. But I would also like to see it in some of the, when you were talking about the parcels. I know of a place, but Tim had talked to me about it and said, I don't think it's big enough. So having the, right size piece of property, I know is a big problem. So, but I would definitely like to see it investigated.
Okay. Dwayne or Phil?
Talking about one location for all this together.
That's preferable, but it doesn't necessarily have to be built out that way. You could have fields and an event center in different locations, but again, the preference would be to take advantage of the infrastructure, especially when you have open fields. You're going to need somewhere in inclement weather for those teams to go to, so to have an event center does make sense. There's also considerations that you'll see in the document when you go through it that I think we could take the approach where we are looking for ultimate versatility. It could serve also as a location for a transportation modal. It could serve purposes for FEMA. So there, I think, are a lot of avenues that we could pursue in terms of the versatility of this facility, but also from a funding standpoint. Because FEMA monies might be available for shelters, for example.
Right.
And so we've highlighted that very briefly in here, but I don't want you to think that this is just a sports facility. This is an events facility. It's a multi-purpose facility. It could serve not only our sports programming needs, but the needs of the schools in our county and chambers. And so I would ask you to take a very broad view of this, because that was the intent behind this position paper.
Let's go, and the opposite side of that is to make sure that we're looking at how much more we can get by having a facility like this and not just necessarily displacing things that we're already doing or moving into a different. So what's the net add? And those things you just mentioned are part of that, and the other things that we're not attracting right now or not able to handle is the other side of it. We wouldn't want to necessarily just do this to displace a lot of stuff that's going on elsewhere in the county already.
We think this is a growth opportunity for sure, yes.
Okay. Well, based on the feedback, why don't you go ahead and prepare like an RFP that describes exactly what we'll be looking at, and then bring it back to us next month?
Will do.
And we can review it then and, make a recommendation then. Okay?
Great news. We're glad to do that. Yep,
Okay.
Thank you for that for support.
Great. Okay, next I'd like to get approval of the TDC minutes for January 16th, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great.
I moved. Mayor Kennedy seconded.
Sorry, I'll be better about that. At this point, are there any public comments? Okay, we're going to wait for the county attorney report. I believe Mayor Bajowski's on her way, and so it was to do with the TDC role that she asked in the TDC 101 that we had last month. So with that, we'll move on to the legislative update. Brian Lowack, who is our Pinellas County Intergovernmental Liaison. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for the nice introduction, Brian Lowack. Wanted to come today and talk to you all about some legislation that's moving currently in the state legislature. We just started week 2 this week. We've got 7.5 weeks left. So I just want to bring these 4 bills to your attention. and I can follow up in any way that you'd like. The first bill that I wanted to note was Senate Bill 414, and this deals with sports development, and this would eliminate the sports development program that funds professional sports facilities in the state of Florida. The good news on that is since this program has been enacted in, I believe, 2014, it has yet to be tapped into to pay for any facilities. So that's part of the reason they're doing away with it, is because they haven't used it to this point. The next bill is House Bill 791, Sports Franchises and Facilities, and this bill would prohibit the use of tourist development tax revenues or state funds to finance or construct any aspect of a facility if it's currently or will be used by a professional sports franchise. The second part of that bill is that it prohibits a sports franchise from constructing or improving a facility that's leased on state or local government lands. This bill has passed 2 of its 3 committees in the House, but it does not have a Senate companion at this time. So I guess what I would caution on is saying, well, there's no Senate companion, and on Senate Bill 414, the House bill isn't moving because they're dealing with ultimately the same thing, and that's doing away with public funds being used to fund sports facilities. So at the end of the day, towards week 7, 8, 9 of session, if these move a little bit, they could ultimately merge in one bill. So that's what we're keeping on our radar, and we'll keep you abreast of that movement. The next bill is Senate Bill 1708, and this deals with tourist development councils. Sponsor of this is Senator Rouson here in Pinellas County, and this would allow any county with a population of 900,000 or more by resolution to create and appoint as they determine fit more than one tourist development council. This bill was just filed at the beginning of session, hasn't had a committee hearing yet, and does not have a House companion. So I don't anticipate this bill moving this year. However, you know, it's something that we should discuss moving forward to see what the future of that is.
Ryan, with this particular one, would the county commission have to approve this, or what is being proposed?
And Michael may want to chime in, but my interpretation of it is the county commission has the option to do so.
Correct. Okay. And they would do so by adoption of a resolution establishing the alternate mode of tourist development councils, whether it's 1, 3, or just keep it consistent and with what we currently have.
Yes, Charles.
I just wanted to say, and I apologize, I wasn't at the last meeting, but I understand Mayor brought this up at the last meeting, Mayor Kretikos, about St. Petersburg wanting a separate TDC. I can tell you City Council has never discussed this. I don't know where this came from. No one has ever talked to me about this. I am good friends with Senator Rouson. I don't know anything about why he filed this bill. But I can tell you in the halls of government in the city of St. Petersburg, there's no discussion going on about this. I wanted you to know that.
Appreciate that. It was brought up by one of the other members that had suggested that, and I just chimed in because I felt like it was important that we know that. You know,
I can tell you it's got no energy and no momentum in city government at St. Petersburg.
Chuck, did you want to comment?
Yeah, this individual contacted me, and his concern was that St. Petersburg, in his opinion, wasn't getting enough of the advertising revenue. And so I tried to explain to him, it's his understanding is the TDC allocates the money, and I explained to him, we're just an advisory board, A. It's the county commission's decision how the money is spent. And even though it's arguably $60 million, he was understanding if he split it, he and his new group might get $30 million, and they could spend $30 million towards advertising St. Petersburg. And I, once again, try to explain there's all kinds of carve-outs for beach renourishment and things you've already funded over the years. But once again, that's in a very broad paintbrush, his intention.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And the final bill I wanted to bring to your attention was Senate Bill 726, Tourist Development Tax. And this bill would essentially just codify the use of TDT revenues to incentivize film and television production in the state of Florida. So that one has yet to be heard and does not have a House companion. Those are the 4 pieces of legislation I want to bring to your attention. The perhaps a bigger, more important issue that I wanted to bring to your attention was the issue of Visit Florida. And the Governor, DeSantis, does have Visit Florida fully funded at $76 million, which it currently is in his proposed budget. On the Senate side, they have a bill that has been fast-tracked. Tomorrow will be its 3rd and final committee stop, and that is a bill to reauthorize Visit Florida, which needs to be, it's up for reauthorization this year. If there is no reauthorization, it will come to an end on October 1. Now, in the House side, there is no bill for reauthorization, and the House Speaker has indicated that it's not a priority of his. So I believe this will be something that plays out throughout the course of the entire session, and once the budget's out, that'll be one of the bills that's talked about as a deal at the end.
Is there any movement to address the tourist development tax with the capital projects?
There's no legislation addressing that.
Okay, good. Mayor?
Could you give us a clarification on the sports facilities? Does that mean like a Buck Stadium or Tropicana Field, or does that mean like a spring training facility also? Are they together,
So
lumped together, or not?
The quick answer is yes, all of the above. They're different programs which those are funded through, but this bill would repeal all of those programs.
And it would be effective by end of session?
July 1.
July 1.
Yeah, so one of the terms in this bill would, any agreement that is in place on or prior to July 1 would not be affected, but you wouldn't be able to use it after July 1.
And I apologize, because you probably said this and I missed it, but on the first one, on Senate Bill 414, what's the current committee status and all that? Where is that bill right now?
That bill has moved 2 of the 3 committees. It's got
Okay.
one more stop. However, it doesn't have a House companion.
Right, but I think, I want to make sure I heard you right. You're saying that the evolution of HB 791 and Senate Bill 414 is probably going to be that they'll merge. Is
And
that-
that's an
That's a
observation
prediction
I'm
on your
making.
part. I understand.
It very well
I
could
understand.
could
That
not.
makes sense to me. Okay. I'm going up there next week. St. Petersburg has a St. Petersburg Day next week in Tallahassee, and I'm going to see if I can talk to these gentlemen about that.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions? Thank you, Brian.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. I'll move back to the county attorney report. Michael?
Yes, good morning. Commissioner, this is a follow-up to an issue that Mayor Buchowski brought up at the TDC workshop regarding the role of TDC members. So what I did was just a very, very brief, if you could pass that way. Just kind of a very brief summary as to the role of TDC members, and I kept it very high level because obviously we could get into minutia. But the bottom line is that the TDC Council, as Mr. Prather pointed out, is an advisory board to the BCC. They are tasked as follows pursuant to the special act that creates them. They are charged to meet no less than once a quarter to discuss tourism promotion-related matters. They are to make recommendations to the BCC related to the use and expenditure of tourist development tax revenues. They also tasked by the BCC to review specific county tourism funding programs such as the Elite Event and capital projects funding programs and other programs that might be developed and directed by the BCC. They also are tasked with reviewing the CBV's budget and programs contained therein. And they are also charged with reviewing and giving advice as to the county's tourism development plan. So, Mayor, I hope that kind of addresses a little bit better. Yeah, because I know it's kind of hard to quantify, but that's pretty much the overview.
Thank you.
The role. Sure, you're welcome. Are there any questions?
Thank you. You always make it very legible. Yes. And good, to the point, not in legalese.
I try. Just keep it simple.
Which is great. Okay, next is the Visit St. Pete Clearwater Chief Operating Officer Report. Tim. Elite Event Funding Program Committee.
March Madness is back. The elite event program continues this year with a April 1st start. And I believe, Madam Chair, you and I talked last week in preparation for this meeting that we're looking for committee members.
Right.
So that's what I'm here to just remind you and ask, that we put the committee together, and we will roll out the application process starting April 1st. It'll all be posted online like we've done this past few years. And we're looking at a May 29th committee meeting. It would be from essentially 9 to 4. That's what we've got budgeted. And again, all this information will be posted, and we'll provide emails to all of you who are going to serve on the committee. So, Madam Chair, I'd ask for the committee members to be appointed at some point.
Right. So, the rules are that the chair serves and that there's up to six members, 4 from the tourism industry and 2 from the other category. So if you want to look at your calendars, and then if you're interested, why don't you go ahead and email me and let me know that you're interested, and then we'll take it from there. The other part that I wanted to alert you to is we're going to add another piece of information for the Elite Event Committee. And what that is it's basically going to be a review of the marketing value of the proposals. So it's another way of seeing, are we getting the rate of return from this elite event, from media buys, and from other any other value that may come from the review of this.
That's correct. And we will take advantage of our relationship with BBK, and Mary and her group are in the room here. So we will forward to them all the applications, and they'll provide input to the committee members on how they value not only the media plans, but the sponsorship components as well.
We just thought that was another good information piece that we would have. So again, anything to be considered has to score a 700 or greater, but this we thought would add, like I said, some value to those deliberations. Yes.
In that study, we talked about the comments, how it would affect media and sponsorship, but how about economic impact for each event? Is that anywhere that we would know, which really affects bed tax potentially and sales?
I'm going to give you a response that's in part just my interpretation of where we are under the guidelines. Hotel room nights is really the key metric here. Anything above and beyond that, as far as economic impact, to me, I've always had the opinion that if an applicant wants to add that to their narrative, they're more than welcome to do that. But the scoring is based upon the generation of hotel room nights. Oh, okay. So this year, we have employed our research firm, Destination Analytics, DA, to do surveys at every event. We have taken on that expense, and that's a value in kind that we've given back to each applicant. So there's a cash component of what we ultimately provide these applicants that you all approve, and then there's a VIK, a value in kind. And this year, we are instituting a survey at every event, every elite event, that is available not only to the applicant, but obviously it's a public record once we get it. Leroy leads that effort, and again, it's another tool that's now available to us in helping us to do what exactly Commissioner Seal just said, evaluate that ROI on these events. And so I think we've progressed over the last several years in trying to get to that comfort level that we are scrutinizing these events. And I think another point I'd like to make is that in the negotiation process, we rely heavily on BBK on all of our marketing deals, and we're going to continue to do that in this instance. So not only will BBK have a role with helping the committee members in scoring, but will help us once we bring these applicants in to negotiate these deals and explaining to them where we see value, where we don't. So their involvement will be a two-part process.
And that's one reason we slightly moved the date of the application process back, so that we could get as many surveys and that information as possible for the committee to also have access to. So, trying to put more arms around this whole process.
When did we start that? Did we start that at the beginning of the fiscal year in October? Or?
Correct. This year, this current fiscal, yes. So we're about
every event that's taking place in this fiscal year is getting back.
That's correct. In addition to the self-reporting, we've had that requirement for several years now. So applicants owe us a post-event report that shows us how they performed. And now we have one tool at our disposal, the DA research, to basically compare to what they tell us. Because that's always been part of the challenge. This is all self-reported information. And so we're just trying to find out ways of validating that.
In the past, when we had the Collages group working, didn't they review them all? Didn't they do intercepts at each of the events?
I think that was a choice that the applicant could do, could hire.
They would hire them, okay.
But it was not a requirement, or it wasn't offered. We are now, instead of requiring it, offering it, and we pay for it as part of our contribution towards the event. So instead of putting that burden on the applicant or the event organizer to carry that expense and conduct that survey, we're doing it. One of the biggest advantages, we're now going to have a consistent approach, consistent methodology,
Right.
consistent report out.
And the event gets a non-biased feedback on what's really going on.
Yes, and
They
we
just tell them what they want to hear.
And we're very candid with them. If you want to conduct your own, independent from that you feel maybe that you need to have some sort of comparison, feel free to do that. But we are conducting these for every event.
And some of them do, as a matter of course, but not all.
Correct. The big ones
Yeah.
that can afford it.
Yeah.
Julie, and then
Thank you, Madam Chair. In our little workshop that we had last month, we talked a little bit about reporting on the after. You know, we invest in something and then getting that follow-up report. Will we get those here, where you would present?
We can do it any way you want. One suggestion I'd make is that we provide those post-event reports to the committee members and to help them in their scoring process, and we can provide it for the TDC as a whole, for sure.
I mean, I think it would show all of us as a group, in case we have a conversation to be had, or even to the public, we've made this investment and this is the return on investment. I think that's important.
If I may, I believe that is part of the submittal. Once they've filled that out and they applied the following year and they've had an event previously funded, they have to submit that post-event report. It's part of the analysis that's done to make sure that they met the metrics.
Right, but I mean, as we're going through the year, I mean, you'll have a committee, and they may see all of this, but folks that aren't on the committee might not, and I don't know if you.
We'll make that available, sure.
I mean, I just think it would be a nice part of our meeting to hear our investment and how it's.
And if there was, if I
Yeah.
may, additionally, if there was an event that didn't meet it, that would be pointed out to both the committee and ultimately the TDC.
I'll tag on one other thing. We actually make it a requirement before you get your reimbursement check that you have to submit that report. So we make it a condition of payment.
Because we get a lot of reports.
We get full compliance that way.
We get a lot of reports up here, and I just think that would be a good one to have.
I probably know the answer to my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because there were two programs, elite events, that weren't considered by us. One that comes to mind is the Martin Luther King, and the Grand Prix that just occurred. Did we do any kind of, monitoring there to see what was going on?
Martin Luther King got funded separately.
Right.
And that came, David Downing had worked that arrangement through our meetings group, so that was a funding mechanism to support the hotel rooms that were purchased locally. Grand Prix did not apply, so we did not involve any marketing dollars there.
So we didn't do any checking to see, how full the hotels were down in St. Petersburg and throughout the county during that week, and we don't have any information, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, can we get it? We might be able to get it. If the Grand Prix were to come forward this year and apply, they'd obviously have to provide that as part of their application process. And same thing with MLK. So just because the event has already happened, they would have to report out going forward what their past performance has been. So that would get captured going forward.
Madam. Tim, do you have any opinion of why Indy didn't apply with such a big media influence, with such a big sponsorship level? What to me clearly seems like an elite event. Why would they not want to come and get another pot of
Nothing
money?
was ever communicated to our office, and I don't think to our staff. No, we don't know.
Okay, thank you.
looks like Charlie knows.
I can tell you.
Charlie knows, okay, thank you.
I just tell you straightforwardly, Kim and Kevin's position is at some point we have to stand on our own. And we've decided that this is the point that we stand on our own going forward. I don't expect them to apply in the future.
Which is really
That's the
excellent,
point.
and I applaud
I
them
mean,
because,
we had a guideline system where you were weaned off of it.
right.
And they have taken the position that, we appreciate the history of help, we appreciate the history of partnership. We've determined it's time for us to stand on our own. That's what they told me.
Thank you.
And again, we applaud them because that is essentially what we had hoped the elite events would
Right.
do, that they would grow to the point where they didn't need the TDC dollars. Great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, great. All right, we'll move on to, don't forget to email me if you're interested in the committee. And again, the date's going to be May 29th from 9 to 4. So, department report, sports and events. Sarah?
If I could,
Oh, I'm
Madam
sorry.
Chair, if I might, introduce Sarah to the group here.
Okay.
Yeah, she's well known, but I just want to highlight the fact that Sarah's coming up here. Sarah was recently promoted to a director level, so I just wanted to point that out to you, that she's now in charge of the sports and events division for us, department. And she's done a great job, and I think what you're about to hear is a follow-up to the request for information about last month's softball event and some other information. But I just wanted to highlight the fact that she's recently promoted. So, Sarah Kirchberg.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. As Tim just mentioned, I am Sarah Kirchberg, the Director of Sports and Events. I just wanted to thank the council for letting me provide you guys a little bit of a update and to highlight some of the successes of our team thus far. We are on track, I think, to meet our fiscal year-end goals. I know we're only about halfway through, but with the successes of these recent events, we're going to continue on that momentum through the spring and into the summer. So to start off with, really just wanted to touch on our MLS preseason partnerships that we renewed for this year. We renewed with the Philadelphia Union and DC United. Both of these teams do their preseason training in Clearwater. They had greatly successful preseason last year. I heard nothing but positive, again, feedback about this coming year. And we're looking forward to working on our presenting nights for both of these teams, Pride nights in their home markets in June, consequently for both of these teams. Shortly after that, you may have heard about this little softball tournament that happened in Clearwater. Valentine's Day and President's Day bookended this tournament for us. We hosted 16 of the nation's top softball programs. 39 games were played over 4 days at Eddie Seymour in Clearwater. The last 3 national champions were also in attendance. That happens to just be 2 teams, FSU as the 2018 champion, Oklahoma as the reigning champ for 17 and 16. So just a little bit of the metrics that we do have available already is attendance. Over 11,000 people attended over the 4 days. That includes single day tickets as well as tournament passes. Total, there was just over 3,000 tickets purchased. So that kind of breaks it out a little bit to kind of help understand some of these other numbers. 42 states and Canada, so people came. Definitely there was a high rate of travel into Pinellas County, as only 432 of those over 3,000 tickets purchased were purchased by Pinellas County residents. We are still, we worked with Leroy and his team and DA to get them to come out and do a economic impact survey of the event. So we're still waiting for their final report, but we do know that over 1,000 hotel room nights were booked in the county just by the teams, ESPN, the production crew, and the officials, and as well as the folks that came in from the NCAA. They stayed in hotels in Clearwater, Clearwater Beach, St. Pete, Safety Harbor, and unfortunately we did have one team stray across the bridge and go to Tampa. As far as the broadcast, again, still waiting on some of those official stats, but just wanted to touch on the fact that 25 of the games were broadcasted on television or streamed live. So of the 9 games, there were 9 games on TV, 8 of them on ESPNU, and then one on ESPN2, the last game of the tournament, Sunday evening. 16 games were streamed, most of them, about 14 of them on ESPN3 and 2 on the SEC network. Wanted to point out here with this, the event that was on ESPN2, that game was actually the most watched television program on ESPN2 that Sunday. So we outranked college basketball and a bunch of other professional teams that day to be the most watched event on ESPN2 that Sunday. As far as our social media reach, I wanted to just kind of demonstrate the diversity of the accounts and of the exposure that the tournament got. This was from the tournament itself.
A very strong field. They pitch well, they hit well. Their defense outstanding. Are you serious? Back it goes, and it is gone. Boy, this might be a big break.
So this was one of the teasers that was created by ESPN and used to promote that the road to Oklahoma City, or the road to the Women's College World Series, will start in Clearwater for the 2019 season. Additionally, you can see what happened. Michelle Smith, who I think you guys are all familiar with. She's local here, two-time Olympic gold medalist. This picture that you see of Eddie Seymour right here, this was probably one of the most shared images from the tournament. The night before the tournament, one of the Parks and Rec Department staff members, no filters, nothing, just went out and snapped this picture of the field as we awaited for the tournament to start. So, Michelle throwing out some love leading into the tournament, as well as one of the most watched clips from the tournament as well was from the ESPN2 broadcast of the FSU Knowles.
Unbelievable. First off the blast, it looks like it's going out of the yard. Bearden gets all of it, but look at the way Danny Morgan going back, finding the fence, and leaping up, taking that ball.
Killer.
Gives me chills. Gives me chills.
Two of us in the room.
But they stayed in Tampa.
We'll have to talk to somebody about that.
So, and one of the other things also to mention is the amount of talent that ESPN and the caliber of talent that they put behind this broadcast. To bring Michelle Smith, who's local, obviously, to bring Beth Mowins and Holly Rowe, to have those kind of powerhouses from the women's softball world to come and be part of this preseason tournament did not go unnoticed. And then this is from Holly at the end of the tournament here. Start that over.
History made. Florida State wins the first St. Pete Clearwater Elite Invitational. Ladies, you guys were a part of history, first ESPN women's event like this. What'd you think?
Just incredible. Everybody's worked to be here, not just the 4 days, but just for years in advance making this happen. Unbelievable. So proud.
Love that head start on the season that we got, and now every year we got to do this, so we can bring people softball from opening weekend right to the finish of the World Series.
All right, Amanda.
I think this is proof that softball fans love softball and that our sport is growing. It was, I think, exceeded expectations. It was incredible.
All right, and a big round of applause for Michelle.
Yeah.
You drew this. You grabbed for Smitty.
For the game.
For the game. History tonight. Way to go, ladies.
So obviously, amongst the softball community, ESPN, this was a pet project and something they all really enjoyed coming in and doing, and are very bullish about continuing on this legacy that we've created after this first year. Some of our Visit St. Pete Clearwater generated, and if you'll notice back in that last tweet that we did have, our very own chief operating officer threw out his first pitch. And I also know that the mayor did his as well.
Went from the mound?
I'm not a technical expert here I would defer to Michelle for her expertise as to whose form was more accurate. We actually had the chance to sit with Michelle yesterday and spend some time with her, just to kind of do a little event debrief and, you know, to talk to her from the ESPN perspective and from, you know, really a champion locally of softball. We're really excited still with the momentum that we started with this event. And as she, with her insight and her guidance, we are continuing to create St. Pete Clearwater as the premier softball destination. That is our goal. That is what we are striving for. The success of this event just further defines that better. And we're really looking forward to regrouping with ESPN and our partners with the City of Clearwater as we start negotiating and looking at the 2020 event for next year. So hopefully, as we continue to go down that path, I'd be more than happy to provide everyone with updates as we continue to advance these conversations moving forward. After a great week, yes,
May I
ma'am.
ask you a question?
Yes.
How much did Visit St. Pete Clearwater invest in this tournament?
So we invested $125,000 as the title sponsor, getting all of the branding of the tournament. And that came from the value seen from the television and broadcast coverage, as well as the branding of the tournament, and then the signage and everything that you saw on field throughout all of that.
And did they pay for the fields in Clearwater? Or did we?
We did, our agreement was directly with ESPN Events, and it was, again, for the marketing and branding of the event.
No, we maintained the fields, and did all the groundwork, our groundskeepers were on the fields the whole time.
Right, but did you all receive any income for the fields?
I don't know that we did.
The city, I believe the way that everything's been structured is that we were investing in the broadcast and in the branding, and the city was investing in the facility usage. And I believe that through some of their contract with ESPN Events, which was a separate for the venue use itself, there were some revenue sharing opportunities between ESPN Events and the city of Clearwater, but we were not privy to that contract, as that was, negotiated directly between them. But there was, kind of two separate arrangements.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add just a couple things here? Just because Sarah did a great job, but she missed two things that I think were key. One is there were so many people there that there were not enough vendors to provide food for the people. Mm-hmm. And ESPN went out and got pizzas and drinks to pass out to the crowd. And you should see how the fans changed their opinion of being here once they got free food. It was really amazing, because Carolyn and I were sitting in with the spectators, and everybody, I had to wait 2 hours for a hot dog, and the next thing you know, a hot dog is being tossed to them, and this is the best thing that's ever happened to us. And the other thing is that I need to thank the county and the TDC, because several years ago, the city came and asked with y'all if we improve the press box facility, then Visit St. Pete Clearwater would go out and get these tournaments to come to Pinellas County. Mm-hmm. And we invested in that money and then got reimbursed, because that wasn't an expense that we were going to do. But in an effort to partner with the county, to promote the destination, we did this. We got this tournament for 3 more years. We got the junior national tournament and an international tournament that all came to Pinellas County because of these upgrades that were made available through the TDC. So on behalf of all of us, thank you.
Okay. So then the weekend after our great softball weekend, we actually had USA BMX in town in Oldsmar for the USA BMX Skater Nationals. This event was a UCI Worlds qualifier. So UCI is the international governing body for BMX racing in the Olympics. And so what happened here is these teams and these riders came to Oldsmar to start to earn points to qualify to make the Olympic team for Tokyo for their respective countries. We had 39 states, riders from 39 states, Florida being our largest, California, where the National Training Center for BMX racing is, as well as Georgia, and then we had 21 countries. The team, the international team that came with the most riders was Canada and Brazil, and Switzerland. So those are the top 3 of the international countries that came and participated in Oldsmar. And we had a weekend attendance projection of about 12,000 people through that event as well, with 900, a little over 900 riders. The community travels like family. So it was a really great, well-attended event. USA BMX left very pleased. City of Oldsmar is super excited as well to continue on the BMX legacy up there. And then finally, just wanted to touch on the TNBA National Tournament and Convention that's coming in May. It's going to be the 80th anniversary for this group. This is the National Bowling Association. And this will be the first time that they've been here in Pinellas County. They're utilizing 4 of the bowling centers in our county. So this is really a county-wide initiative and a county-wide supported event that's coming. They are anticipating about 1,200 teams, which depending on the final makeup between youth and adult teams, we could be looking at anywhere from 4,800 to 6,000 athletes coming in for those 10 days, I think it ends up being, of competition. They have contracted hotel rooms throughout the county. This map here kind of shows you the breadth of this event and how it is going to touch a lot of our county. And we're really looking forward to helping them celebrate their 80th anniversary as well coming up. And that is about it for me. If there are any questions about anything that's coming up.
Question, did we send out something to Michelle Smith in recognition? We talked about it the last meeting.
We did. We reached out, Tim. I don't know if you want to speak to that or not, but or Sarah, you did.
Yes, we are. We're continuing to work through it, and we will do we'll create something very formal. But she right now, as you could probably imagine, her schedule, she's somewhere else every weekend. So we wanted to make sure that it was it was something a little bit more formal and ceremonial. So we will continue to find a time in her schedule to allow that and involve the council as well.
Good. And then the other thing is, the mayor of Clearwater is recognized as a professional first pitch mayor because he does it all over the nation, and we're very proud of his talents that he has.
Another hidden talent.
I'd like to hit against him.
Yeah, you. Trust me, my famous, my slow change up is nothing
spin
to
me into
laugh
the
at,
ground?
right? Yep.
Sarah, did we get any numbers on the BMX as far as room nights?
USA BMX hasn't sent me the final room night count yet, but I will. I can follow up.
We will
with
get
that.
something.
Yes, we will. Yeah, USA BMX is actually one of our unique partners in the aspect that they have a play to save model that actually helps to track a lot of those room nights very well, better than a lot of the other groups that just kind of leave their participants to their own devices. So I will follow up with John David from USA BMX and get that information.
And was there any financial commitment from VSPC on that?
Yes. We in order to host a USA BMX Nationals event, there is a $20,000 bid fee that is paid to host the event, and so that was our contribution. Oldsmar provides and maintains the track to international competition standards, and we cover the bid fee to bring that Nationals event to Oldsmar every year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, next up is meetings and conventions, Suzanne Hackman.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My presentation is not as flashy as Sarah's, so I'm really regretting going second. I'm thinking I don't have any videos or any, home runs being hit. But I did just want to update you a little bit on what's going on with the meetings team. And this is just a brief glimpse of the staff, which really hasn't changed that much. But for those of you that are new to the council, I wanted you to kind of see how we're diversified. This is a map of the market share and who handles what in those markets. As you can see, it's they have pretty large territories, but so they're on the road a lot and bringing home the business. Just a few pictures of us out and about doing the conventions with some of the hotel partners and our trade show booth in the background. So, as you know, our main goal is putting heads in beds in the need times for the hotels when leisure is soft and their meeting space needs to be filled. So, last year, 175,000 room nights, 50 million in economic impact. This year, we're on track to surpass that. We're at 73.5 right now with just over 21 million. So, going into our busy travel season right now, where my team is on the road continuously representing the destination, we will see a lot more RFPs coming in. Just a few more pictures. So one of the goals for this year and that I will be carrying into next year on my marketing plan that I'll talk about at the budget meeting is these shows that we travel to all the time where we're standing in a trade show booth meeting people, doing appointments. Our goal is to bring those to the destination and get all these meeting planners here. Best form of advertisement is to get them here, have them experience the destination. So we were fortunate enough to secure the Senior Planner Industry Network. These are all meeting planners that have more than 20 years of experience planning meetings. It was hosted at the Don Cesar in November, and it was just over 360 room nights. So it was met with really rave reviews about the destination, and I think the one takeaway that I heard more than anything else was, wow, I never knew you had so much to do in the destination and you had these beautiful beaches. It's still puzzling to me how they don't know that. So two things that we have slated to coming up in 2019 and 2020 is with Collinson Media, which is, they run the Connect shows, which are some of the larger shows that we go to throughout the year. Connect Florida is going to be at the Vinoy in November. These are all Florida-based meeting planners, and Florida does continue to be our #1 feeder market for meetings and conventions. So this should be really great advertisement for us. And then Connect Medical Tech is all meeting planners are involved in the tech field and the medical, medical supply or pharma, that kind of thing. So that will be here in 2020 as well. That's also in November. So just over 500 room nights. That show just began last year. So, this year we'll be attending the show, so we'll have a little bit better gauge on, the type of planner and the quality that they're getting at these shows. Just a little bit of ROI down there at the bottom. Doing these Connect shows over the years, 64 RFPs totaling 23,700 room nights with possible economic impact of over 6 million. And to date, we've booked 6,000 for 1.7 million in economic impact. One of the key things that we have done over the years is partner with our third parties. And third parties have become really integral as they have diversified and really spun off into 3 key categories: Helms Briscoe, Hospitality Performance Network, and Conference Direct. Helms Briscoe being the front runner in most cases. This is just a year over year. I think you will notice that in 2018 it was slightly down. And what we attribute that to is some of the bigger chains, Marriott and Hilton, have changed how they pay commission. These agents typically look for a 10% commission, and last year, all of the larger chains went down to 7% that they're paying. So that has put a re-business thinking in these third parties to try to maybe filter their business to independent hotels that are still willing to pay them 10%. So we've seen kind of a downtick in that. Conference Direct, same thing, wasn't off that much. But we are seeing a little bit of the trend downward in that. Hospitality Performance Network is fairly new, so we just last year were selected to be a exclusive partner. We're one of only 13 other destinations, so because they are fairly new, we are putting more effort into representing with them and getting involved in their events that they do. And then just to touch on one of the largest shows, as you'll see in the budget meeting in a few weeks, that is probably our most expensive show that we do on the meeting side. It is the largest meetings and conventions trade show that is held in America. And we usually have between 6 and 8 hotel partners that travel with us for this 3-day show. Over 4,000 meeting planners in attendance, 110 appointments. We did have an opportunity to pull some of those planners off site, and we did this cool race car event where they got to drive these high performance cars, and we were able to brand them. And the hotel partners actually are the ones that put on the event and let Visit St. Pete Clearwater participate with them and let us brand the cars. So it was really well received, and we're hoping maybe we can present that again next year. And this was a picture of our booth at IMAX. As you can see, the people gathered there. We do a reception every day in the booth. So even though we conduct 110 appointments, our goal is to try to meet as many people as we can. So we usually tweet out about the time of the reception, and then we get to meet more planners that we didn't get to meet in our appointments. And that is my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The economic impact numbers, are they straight room nights times ADR, or is there a spend component to it? Do you know what the formula is for the economic impact numbers?
Yes, so our formula used to be, it was sent out by Destination International. It used to be $290 per room per night, so
Okay.
it allotted for the room night, room rate plus spend.
Plus a spend, okay.
Now we have a calculator that DI put out that is done through our Simple View system. So according to the type of meeting it is, and I don't know, what their metrics that they use, but it spits out that number for us.
Okay.
So it varies a little bit. You could have a conference that says it's 400 people and it's a medical convention, or 400 people on an agricultural convention, and the EI will be different.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Any other questions? I think it would be interesting if you could take what you just gave us slide by slide and just put it into one memo to us and list the stats. And then I'm curious how much it costs to run your department, and just kind of run that as a comparison.
Sure.
Okay.
Happy to do it. All right. Thank you.
I think the other part is that the importance of measuring the participation of industry, the tax collectors, and how they do use the meetings and conventions and go to these different trade shows that they wouldn't be going to because the cost individually. But they become part of a bigger stand, bigger draw by participating in this. And the numbers are staggering. Every hotel is participating. It's a great numbers of the tax collection of these, the major hotels that have the meeting space that are participating in her shows and all.
Yeah, a lot of the shows that we do, we go to because our hotel partners want to go, and it's too expensive for them on their individual budgets. So we hold a trade show drawing every year. We also meet with the partners throughout the year to talk about, the shows that are trending, what they want to be at, and then, we get the cost and we figure out what fits into our budget, and then what we need to in turn charge the hotel partners a participation fee back to us to do that. So with IMAX is a good example, but the majority of the shows that we attend so that our hotel partners can go.
Yes, Phil.
So the hotel partners don't actually have their own booth, they're just working with you in your larger space?
Yes, most of the time. There are a couple shows that don't allow us to bring hotel partners. Those shows aren't typically like a trade show where we stand in a booth. They're more of an appointment-based show. But any of the larger ones, MPI, ASAE, IMAX, those, we go and buy the booth space, and then the partners pay us to go. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a comment. At the trade show, the meeting planners that come up, or wherever the venue is, those that are asking for an RFP, or when I look at the hotel, they're looking at all the hotels in her brand. They may qualify down to certain ones that fit their meeting space, but if I participate in her booth, they're all her leads, is what they are. They're not my leads. They're the county leads. In fairness to everybody.
We market a little different, of course, but we've been to Huddle a few times back in the day, and everybody had their own booth, but we were all together, looking like one unified force, so to speak. So I didn't know how some of these were, if everybody was within your space or if you had them all lined up like that.
We're all together. IMAX is the only show that is, we have been fortunate enough to grow over the years, so we have an island where they have their own spaces, so that's set up a little bit different, but most of the times it's just a 10 by 30 where we're all just standing in the same place. It's the other appointment-based shows like IMAX, they have their own individual areas.
We for Huddle and those, we pay for our own space and down the row and everything, but we're branded to look like a destination, but we all pay for our own.
Right, and
Our own
IMAX, we're branded
appointments.
like a destination too. We have the Eye in the
Yeah.
Sky, and we're with Florida and the other destinations, so it's sort of similar, but not on as grand a scale as Huddle or IPW from what I've seen.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Suzanne. ITB update, Mackenzie Montiero. No.
Hello.
Welcome
Hi,
back.
everyone. Thanks. Yes, I know I've met some of you, but I might not have met all of you. I'm Mackenzie Montero, soon to be changing my name. I've been married for less than 3 weeks, and I am the Media Relations Manager for Visit St. Pete Clearwater. That means I handle all of our public relations domestically and internationally, and I manage our three PR firms in New York, the UK, and Germany. So thank you so much for letting me speak to you guys about ITB and IMM. I just returned last week. So you'll see here this is just a picture of IMM. So that's what I'll start talking about first. This is Trav Media's international media marketplace. They host these in different destinations, and this is the 3rd year they've held it in Germany. This is the 2nd year I've attended, and Leroy attended the 1st year. This is a pre-scheduled appointment-based show where I host 15-minute appointments with 24 different media. It's speed dating, really. That's what it is, and we have a chance to talk about the news in the destination. The benefit of this is that the structure is wonderful. It's one day. I'm able to meet with a lot of different media, and it's an effective way to network and build relationships, as well as meet with media that we've either met with in the past or hosted in the destination as a result of previous meetings. There was a lot of interest in Florida, and the media are keen to show lesser known or undiscovered destinations like St. Pete Clearwater. Most people are familiar or have done Orlando and Miami. Now it's time to show the off the beaten path. And of course, beaches will always be our calling card, but the thing that I took away from most is that a lot of the media that I spoke with were really interested in, our St. Pete, the Dunedin, the smaller towns, Safety Harbor. So it's an opportunity to introduce them to the other different diversity of the destination. Now, this is just an overview of the entire space at IMM. My notes are all on my phone, sorry. Now, there were 111 exhibitors, so you'll see here, and with 186 registered media in attendance, with over 2,500 pre-scheduled appointments. So this is just giving you a broader view. These are some wonderful action photos taken. I learned I'm a hand talker. Again, so this is just more photos of the show. Now we'll move on to ITB, which I think everybody's pretty informed on, but this is, of course, the largest trade show. Here's a photo of me and Marion at Visit St. Pete Clearwater's booth. Now, she's provided me with some different notes that I'd love to share with you all about her overall takeaways. In general, the feeling, the mood at this year's show was optimistic. The consumer climate during the first 2 months of the year shows a stable trend at a favorable level. So the labor market is healthy with income expectations on the rise, and unemployment is low, so the propensity to travel that's still unbroken with the German consumer. Marion actually executed 30 meetings with key tour operators, airline industry associations, and most of the sales tour operators reported that there's been moderate booking in January, but it's been picking up mid-February. And others are reporting there's more of a wait-and-see type of environment determined based on the summer 2019 weather forecast. And then they also are possibly,
Sunny. The weather forecast is sunny.
what was that?
The weather forecast is sunny.
But the weather forecast in Germany, it might.
Who cares? Come over here.
That was just one of the takeaways, yes. And then they are anticipating possibly a pre or post Easter kind of booking increase. Some of the tenor she reported was that the USA is still among the top long haul destinations for Central European travelers, with German visitation obviously topping the list. Now, talking about 2018, bookings suffered, and that's something that she's been speaking to, but Florida is making a comeback, and there is, after some pent-up demand. There is still the fluctuating between the US dollar and the euro has remained relatively stable, so it's really only been fluctuating between 3 and 5%, and there doesn't appear to be any sort of uncertainty due to geopolitical and economic events. So then she wanted to report on, here's just some more photos. This is the Visit Florida booth. That's cool. But yeah, they did a really good job this year. Last year it was all white and kind of sterile, but this year it was yellow and they had oranges on here. So I thought they did a really great job. And easy to see, this was right when you walked into the America Hall, and so it really stuck out. So from a Visit St. Pete Clearwater standpoint, virtually all sales partners reported double-digit booking increases to our area compared to last year. So again, increasing from 2018. And the tour operator TUI citing the most at 50%. So that's great. We are tracking ahead of most Florida destinations. And one of the things she also wanted to point out from my perspective and hers is there is continued interest in the diversity of the destination. Obviously, we were touting TripAdvisor's award again for the second year, but we still are able to loop back around and talk about the diversity of the destination outside of our beaches. And then also, so I was only there for 3 nights, but I attended IMM, and then I was also at ITB as well. Marian was in this Visit Florida booth, where she was holding her meetings. Here's some other photos. But then I was in the media marketplace, this is the booth I was at for our German PR agency. While she was hosting other appointments, I was meeting with 14 media that weren't at IMM. This was a really great opportunity to chat with German and Swiss journalists, whether broadcast, trade, newspaper, that weren't able to attend IMM. And one of the key takeaways I just wanted to share was that we've really developed our relationship with Visit Florida, their PR team, and their agency rep in Germany over the past year and a half. I've had a chance to meet with them, and they've been in the destination multiple times. So we use this as an opportunity to meet with journalists, and we often reference our relationship with Visit Florida and are able to shoulder some of the costs when we want to host a journalist by having them pay for airfare, and that's simply by coordinating different itineraries where the journalists would visit different destinations throughout Florida. But this is a really wonderful relationship that we've been able to grow and see every year when we see them in Germany. That's about it. I know we're trying to get out of here at 10:15, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything. And I know we'll be providing a more expansive report from Marian.
Any questions?
No?
So what's the definition of media? Specifically, I'm wondering, are influencers contained within journalist, media, within those words, or influencers a separate category? How does that work?
Well, media is an overarching term. We have,
Okay.
broadcast media, we have print media, digital, and then yes, bloggers and influencers are part of that umbrella, and that is an area that is growing, just how it's exploded here in the U.S. It's growing also internationally. We are really strategic when we're working with bloggers and influencers, though, because as you know, there are a lot out there. We like to be strategic and make sure we're pinpointing an influencer, not because they have a huge following, but because they might focus on a specific type of travel
Gotcha.
or specific area that we're wanting to focus on. And,
Okay.
and we don't just...
I was just wondering if they were still included
Yes, they
in
are
the
still
target.
included, and we did meet with some influencers and bloggers at both IMM and ITB.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very
all
much.
so much.
Just a note that all of Visit St. Pete Clearwater department reports are on file at partners www.visitstpeteclearwater.com in case the public would like to access those. Next, Jim Dean, Visit St. Pete Clearwater Interim President and CEO report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I get into our results, and we've had some very, very good January results, and February's looking really strong as we were looking at our weekly data, and we'll shed a little light on that as well. I just want to highlight the team. Your Visit St. Pete Clearwater team, as you've seen from the department reports this morning, really do a great job, and I'm incredibly impressed as I spend more time with the team and learn more every week. And you've seen some from the presentations this morning, but you know, we've enjoyed national media for the last couple of weeks. We were talking last we met about the softball tournament, now the Grand Prix and the national media we get from that, and it's I'm getting spoiled with all the great media that we get, and it's you know, not to mention the world's best beaches and everything else that comes along with our destination. So the team is really doing a great job, and you saw some of that this morning. We are off to a great start with spring break, and our results are looking very strong. But we also have some other initiatives. I'll take just a second to talk about a couple of things we've been working on. With the help of the county administration, we're addressing some of our administrative opportunities to streamline and try to optimize our performance and improve our documentation and our transparency. And we're working on some of those things with the county's help, and I think it's going to make our operation even better. As we mentioned yesterday in the county commissioner meeting, we've got a new RFP coming out for our media and creative services that will be out soon, and we're putting the finishing touches on our budget, and we'll be presenting that budget shortly in May. And I know Terry's been working very hard, and all the departments have worked very hard on putting our budgets together. And because I'm new, we're taking a little bit different look at how we do our budgets this year. And I know I've probably frustrated Tim and Terry a little bit with how we've challenged some of the things that we're budgeting and the way we approach it. So I think you'll see that when we get to our budget presentations. Hopefully you'll appreciate what we're doing there. But if we can go to the first slide is. Who's driving here? Here we go. Leroy, are you going to drive for me as usual? Thank you. You know, you see the results here for January. Very, very strong. Rooms sold up over 3%. Average daily rate up modestly as well. And then, you know, revenue is over 6% growth for January. So we had a slower start, you know, at the end of the year, slow November, December, primarily due to red tide, I think. But boy, we've come out strong in January, and you can see the January rooms sold here. We're at the top of this list at 3.1%, at just over 440 room nights. But before you go to that, Leroy, you can see some of the other markets. Orlando, obviously a big market at 3 million rooms sold, but down almost 4%. And some of the other markets in the state. Tampa enjoyed a good month in January, up almost 6%, but we're awfully proud of the 3% growth coming off of November and December being relatively flat. And then you look at our ADR up 2%, and you can see some of the other large markets not enjoying. The state was relatively flat, and we enjoyed a 2% growth in ADR, so that was relatively strong. And then our RevPAR up 6%, you know, really led the state, and that's, you know, the state was slightly down, and you can see all the markets there. Bay County at $91, RevPAR up, you know, 229%, but up at 6% was really good for us, I think, coming back from where we were. And the tax delivered in January, you can see up 8% in tax dollars for the month of January. So that gives us a year-to-date now back in the black, if you will. So we've recovered from November and December, October, November, December, and we're now growing year over year at almost $16 million. So very, very good rebound from the red tide performance. So January was good. February, as Leroy has indicated to me, as we look at our weekly results through February, they've been very, very strong. So I think February is going to be better than January, and we're looking forward to seeing those official results in February. So congratulations to to everyone for really coming back strong.
Jim, to your experience from Orlando, do you know why they were down 4%?
I don't know. You know, in January Orlando, the attractions in Orlando have a very big December, and we've always slumped a little in January because we drive a lot of attendance during the Christmas period with all the holiday activities that the attractions feature. They invest a lot of money in the holidays, and January is usually a little bit of a breath of fresh air, if you will, for the tourist, and so I think that's not. Not to be it's not unexpected that they would have a little bit softer January, but they had good weather, so and that normally drives attractions.
Or the way the
performance.
vacation fell that
Yeah.
first 5 days or whatever, I don't know.
Right.
Any other questions? Okay, excellent news. We're glad that we have recovered. And at this point, we have any board member comments?
Just wanted to remind everyone that we have the Red Tide Summit, and graciously, Russ Kimball offered 200 seats, and we sold out in 3 days, so he added another 150 because he's an awesome guy. We'll be discussing the effects of the red tide as far as science, small business, economic impact, health. And you can go on the Eventbrite and get a ticket so that you can be there. And we're looking for a really good group. We have 7 speakers that will be speaking for 15 minutes, and then we have a question and answer for about 20 minutes. So if you haven't gotten a ticket and you did want to come, I just wanted to remind everyone. Thank you.
I never paid that close attention to the numbers, but I think I heard that Visit Florida has 76 million.
That's right.
Is that down from a larger number in the past, or just, is that enough?
I think that's flat to where they were last year, but that's down from years prior to that.
Seems like with our $60 million budget, they're at 76 for the entire state. How they do it. Well,
Madam Chairman, it's been reported to me that Pinellas County has advised the city of Clearwater that even before this Tourist Development Council has had the opportunity to review the initial proposal of the city of Clearwater for renovations and improvements to Spectrum Field and the Carpenter Complex is off the table. The city of Clearwater has been and will continue to be a good partner with Pinellas County to promote its #1 industry, tourism. As the largest contributor of bed tax dollars, and as a city that has invested itself and in its infrastructure to make it the #1 beach in America, it disturbs me that the county seems to be dismissing a proposal without even review or economic benefit. What other community, what other county can say that it has the best baseball player coming to the best beach in America for spring training? Let's keep our minds open once the City of Clearwater's proposal is formally presented to the TDC and the Board of County Commissioners. I would request that we do that and not immediately just dismiss the proposal that's coming forward, as has been reported to me.
Well, I'm a bit surprised. I don't believe that we dismissed it. We asked to discuss it, Mayor. So that's my understanding. Jim, do you have any
Yes.
further information?
I do. As a matter of fact, I know there was we heard about legislation that was putting some pressure on the timeline, and I think we've had a meeting as recently as yesterday to discuss it, and it hasn't been dismissed. It's the timeline puts some pressure on decisions that get made and approvals that are needed. So if the legislation doesn't happen, we still have quite some time to get it working and get through the process. And I think that's where we're headed.
Well, I was presented, I was told that the number that was being floated around is off the table.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm concerned about. We've done it hasn't even been formally presented to the TDC for its review, and the county is already saying we're not going to talk about that, and that's disturbing to me. And
Well, I see Mr. Barry Burton, our county administrator, has arrived very timely. Would you like to come up and address the
Phillies.
I got that. So yesterday, we did meet with the city staff, and it was right here where the commission took this topic up. So I expressed the concern that I didn't believe, based upon the feedback that I received from the commission, that there was support at the level that that was proposed. And so the question really was, there was two questions. One, I want to understand the timeline for the city. Okay, so the issue is, one of the issues is trying to get an application in for state money prior to a bill being filed, which is a bill that it currently is pending that would make it effective anything after July the 1st. If the deal's not done, then it doesn't matter, right? Okay, there's no state money. So really, that was the first question. So this is the first time we have met since that commission meeting. So we did have that discussion. They basically said that if it wasn't done, including the agreements that are not in place and things like that, by April 1st, then you really don't have an opportunity to meet that deadline anyway. So we talked through about different options that the city could consider in terms of preparing an application using other types of money to be able to meet the match requirement, that then they could apply and meet that type of time frame. And so that's really in the city's hands if they want to do that. They could break the application into two. There was a couple of different things. So it was really a discussion about options based upon timelines. So we went through that process. The other part, as I said, I expressed a concern that I didn't think there was support from the commission based upon the feedback that we received in this meeting at that level. So what are other options? And so that was really the question posed. It was not an outright no. I'll take anything back to the commission. But in my opinion, based upon the feedback that I received, there was a concern at what level. And so that's really the way in which that conversation occurred.
But, well, again, my understanding is that this body is to review the application and make its recommendation. And it disturbs me that staff and the county commission is taking the position that we're not going to discuss this at this level when we haven't even reviewed it yet as the TDC. And that's the point I was trying to make.
I'd like Michael to clarify, the process changed. I mean, of course, I'm new to
Right.
this being chair, but the process has now changed so that it first look goes to the county commission. And Michael, can you explain that?
And that's correct. Thank you, Commissioner. Mayor, I understand the concern. I think because of the revision to the guidelines, the way the funding for any type of spring training facilities and professional sports facilities, because of the dollar amounts involved, they require that initial conceptual approval by the BCC, and I think at that juncture and during that discussion is where the administrator is talking about the concerns that were raised as to the dollar amounts. Ultimately, it is a BCC determination regardless of the TDC recommendation, so certainly the TDC review is part of it, but ultimately the recommendation and the ultimate dollars awarded is a BCC decision. So I think where things are being kind of conflated is that there has been a conceptual approval, certainly by the BCC. It seems like there's active discussions as to putting together the numbers and a figure that can be brought back to the TDC and how the application is going to be structured. They're looking at all those different options.
And if I can kind of elaborate on those discussions, part of that was information relating to the different pieces of the project, of which we've requested additional information. We have a set of guidelines that was previously developed that is part of that application process we've submitted to the city and requested that they provide that information back. But the real meeting was really to talk about the time frame because of the concern over the state timeline. And it doesn't, based upon the feedback I received from them, our approval process simply wouldn't work under that state-approved timeline regardless.
Again, I think the city of Clearwater prides itself in being a partner with the county, and it just disturbs me that I'm hearing these things that $40 million or whatever the ask is going to be is not, we haven't even looked at it yet, from an economic standpoint. The county's asked us to do certain analysis, which we're in the process of doing, and yet even before that comes back, we're hearing, well, no, you can't go to that number yet. And That's what disturbs me. Let's get the facts in front of us first before we say, no, we're not going to consider $40 million. We're not going to consider 30. Maybe the facts will come back and say, you can't put $20 million in. But it's not fair to say you're not going to discuss 40 until you have the numbers. And that's all I'm asking that the county commission do.
Okay.
I can take it back to the county commission, but I can tell you, Mayor, that based on the discussion at the county commission meeting, there was not support at that level.
No, I understand.
Understand, our
And
discussion
we gave
was
direction to the
Yeah,
county
yeah.
administrator to try to bifurcate it so that we could also work in the state process so that you could go after an application for state dollars.
So in that discussion, and in fairness to that discussion, it was a partnership. We said we absolutely want, it's very important to the community. We want to work with the city. We've had a long-standing relationship, and we want to partner with you on this. I was just simply acknowledging the feedback that you heard loud and clear in this room regarding the level of support. Now, that said, they said, well, what is the number? I have no idea. Let's work through that process. Let's get the information, the economic impact analysis, and the things that are part of that checklist that then the city can provide back to us to where we can begin to have those types of discussions and something that I can support as a recommendation back to the Board of County Commissioners and to this body. But that's additional work that needs to be done. We don't have that type of information yet. Now, so I expressed a concern, and we asked for those additional facts. But the meeting, understand, was really to talk about how to meet the city's timeline for the state application. That was the real intent of the meeting, not to draw a line in the sand or anything like that.
And I apologize, but I look at this as being a partnership and working together. And y'all have known from the very beginning that we have a July 1st deadline. And we need to work through this so that we can get this done together. Not say, well, it's the city's responsibility to do this or the county's responsibility.
Right.
Let's sit down together and do it and get it done by July the 1st. And let's talk about what that number will be, not saying take this number off the table.
It wasn't until yesterday that I heard that there was an April 1st timeline that the city said regarding all the information needing to be in place for them to meet the state's timeline. It's the first time I heard that. So, I'm willing to take any criticism on my behalf, but it is a partnership, and we need to work together. We met probably a month ago. We haven't met since then, and so we certainly will meet at any time. I'll clear my calendar tomorrow. But we've got to have certain information. And the city has that, and we've requested, and we'll be willing to meet at any time.
Madam Chairman, I apologize, but this is very important, not only to the city of Clearwater, but to Pinellas County.
You bet.
The Phillies have been here since 1947. And it just seems to me, we've known we've had that July 1st deadline. Yes, you've only been here a couple of months, Mr. Burton, so I appreciate that. But, all of us have known this, and to hear that we may not meet that deadline now, and, it's...
Well, if it was, is it July 1st or is it April 1st? I think we probably need a clarification from our partners.
For the state,
what the city conveyed to me yesterday was that the licensing agreements and all of the various pieces have to be in place and submitted to the state for the state to go through their process of approval and be completed by July the 1st. That was what was conveyed yesterday. Again, until maybe I should have known. But that was the first time I heard an April 1st deadline in terms of that. So, and we talked about options. Are there ways that we can have a temporary, I'm not articulating all the things that went on for an hour yesterday, but we gave like 5 different options. Can you use certain matches there? And I can come back to the commission and we can do something literally, tomorrow to be able to meet that guideline. And so we pitched different ideas around. And that was really the purpose of the meeting, is to partner, is to collaborate and figure out how to be able to meet, both those timelines at the state and also, begin that process of gathering all the information that'll be necessary to be able to make a recommendation to the county commission.
Again, the purpose that I brought it up, Madam Chairman, was I was more concerned about the $40 million that the county commission has said that it's not even going to consider when it hasn't looked at all the information. All the information hasn't been gathered yet. And that's what's disturbing to me, because Clearwater has been a good partner, and it just seems that that's unfair to say that you're taking it off the table before you have all the information put together.
I hear you loud and clear, and however, again, during the new process, it was to go to the county commission, and the county commission has given guidance that, you're more than welcome to continue to make the submittal for $40 million, but I heard loud and clear from the rest of my commissioners that we probably will not fund to that level. So we want to fund something, but we may not be at that level. So anyway, we will work hard to make that April 1st deadline if that's what it is. And I appreciate the county administrator coming down, and Jim, you giving an update as well.
Good
Okay,
morning,
any other-
everybody.
You must have been, Della must have been watching the TV.
Now, I've got ears everywhere.
Okay. Okay, we're going to adjourn, and then we're going to have our first ever marketing committee and finance and budget committee. Let's give till 10:45 so that you can get to the appropriate place. The marketing committee will meet upstairs in the 6th floor in the county administrator's conference room, and the finance and budget meeting will meet on the 4th floor in the clerk's conference room. So we are adjourned. Thank you.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.